Is it something that is taking the shape in which Ambedkar and many other stalwarts who struggled in the freedom movement envisaged, or it has deviated from some of the biggest dreams that these people ever had? And what is the role of youth in understanding the shifts that have taken place in our democracy? So that is one reason why we should go back to Ambedkar, like we should go back to many others like Gandhi, Lohia, others. I think a time comes when younger generation will have to have a dialogue with our forefathers, not either to divinize them or demonize them, but to read them like our contemporaries, to understand how or what sense we can make out of their writings and thoughts to understand today's turmoils. I think, to put it very simply, we can ask straightforward two simple questions to do this dialogue, to enter into this dialogue. One is, what would have happened or what kind of course our history would have taken had Ambedkar or Gandhi did not exist? If their thoughts were not a part of our tradition, what is it that we would have lost? In other words, what is it that they have given us? And the second question, alternatively, would be, what do you think or what do we think they would have done in today's times? If you ask such questions, we'll get some idea about their importance and the kind of lessons that we can learn and the kind of things that we need to take forward from where they left. Because nobody's words are final. It is our responsibility to take them forward. I'm sure that you will all agree with me, if Ambedkar were to be alive today, he would have certainly gone to Hyderabad and stood for the cause of Rohit Vemula, no doubt about it. Gandhi would have also done it. And Ambedkar and Gandhi both would have stood by the students of JNU. Perhaps Gandhi would have offered himself to be the advocate of Kanhaiya Law because he himself had fought the sedition case very famously. But more than that, I am sure that the forefathers who struggled for freedom, who envisaged a vision of India, would have been really taken aback by the developments that are really creating a kind of tension and havoc to our democracy, a threat to our democracy. So I have been asking this simple question in wherever we have gone as a part of the campaign. In fact, we have covered more than 150 colleges so far across the state. We hope to cover another 20 or 30 by the end of 31st March. One simple question that I have been asking is, what do you think are the greatest threats to our Indian democracy? There may be several threats, but if you are asked to list them, prioritize them, what would you be your list? And invariably, more often than what, the answer I have got is terrorism, corruption. So it has actually made me wonder, and we even talked about it with ourselves, why do our youth consider these two as the greatest threats? And I have repeatedly asked them, my question is, greatest threat to India? No, greatest threat to Indian democracy. Why is that our students today think that corruption and terrorism are the greatest threats to Indian democracy, something more serious and severe than communalism and neoliberalism? So I tried to tease them out of their mind by asking how many people have been killed by terrorism so far? How many people have been killed by malnutrition? How many farmers have committed suicide? To take simple statistics, these numbers are far more. Then why do we still think terrorism is the greatest threat? Malnutrition is something the state could have avoided with right policies. Similarly, farmers' suicide and agrarian crisis could have been solved if the state had adopted certain pro-people rights policies. So why don't we really reflect on how the structure of the state, its behavior has changed in the last 20, 30 years? And in this background that we should go back and revisit Ambedkar. Because today we have to talk about not just one constitution that Ambedkar gave us, but two more constitutions that that we have to face. One, of course, is the constitution that's been there in our minds as a legacy of our 5,000 years of counter-revolution that Ambedkar talks about. The counter-revolution that destroyed the ideals of Buddhism and once again reinvented a highly priestly, Vedic, Brahmanical culture on this country, which continues till today in many, many new avatars. It may not continue the same way, but it continues in different ways. Caste system being one of the greatest developments of this counter-revolution. So nobody can explain this better than Ambedkar. Unfortunately, we look at Ambedkar in only two frames. One as the leader of Dalits, of course he is, no doubt. Another as the frame of the maker of the constitution, of course, which he is. But Ambedkar is beyond these two little frames. Ambedkar should be read as a historian, he can be read as a social scientist, he can be read as an anthropologist, he can be read as an economist, he can be read as a legal luminary, of course he was. But we don't read Ambedkar as a historian. In fact, the entire account of Indian history that he gives in his book, Revolution and Counter-Revolution in Ancient India, in many ways counters colonial historiography. The kind of analysis of our society that he provides in Annihilation of Caste can give us insights more than any sociologist of India could have given. So we have this constitution which is unwritten, undeclared, which is the legacy of these 5,000 years, which talks about a very glorious Indian past, celebrates the past uncritically as if we had invented all scientific major discoveries that we have today, like rocket science, plastic surgery, test tube babies. We all had it in Ramayana Mahabharata times. On the other hand, it still believes, for example, certain ways of living, certain kinds of food habits are inferior, against national interest, national culture. And today, we have been told what is nationalism. How do you show your patriotism? If you carry the biggest flag, you are the great patriot today. But we don't have to. But we have to ask: is not paying taxes regularly a sign of nationalism? Then, if you are paying debts back to the government, to the banks, nationalism. And if you go to any bank today and take the list of defaulters, it runs like a who is who of Indian industry. How is that they have all become defaulters, but they can talk of nationalism? So we have to really understand what is this ideology behind nationalism that is being thrust upon us, that we have been asked to show every day, and the main currents of what constitutes nationalism have been completely ignored. That is because of this undeclared constitution that we have imbibed in the last 5,000 years, to which Ambedkar produced his constitution, where he brought in the language of rights, because without this, the little that we have achieved so far in the last 70 years or so would never have been possible. But is that enough? Is our constitution perfect? Does the constitution that we have adopted today reflect the true spirit of Ambedkar and his ambition and his ideals? No. Because even before the constitution officially was framed, Ambedkar himself had suggested that India should certainly adopt, number one, nationalization of all lands. There should be no private lands, it should be nationalized. It's a very revolutionary concept that Ambedkar had introduced. And he said all public sector undertakings must be in the hands of the government. He had very clearly mentioned that education should be the responsibility of the government. If you nationalize big industry, if you provide education for all, health for all, then the jobs also become the responsibility of the state. But today we have come to a state where our Indian state says that it is not its responsibility to provide jobs. On the other hand, we will invite a lot of private people so that they create jobs. There is a very simple question that you have to ask. Why would a capitalist who comes from a foreign country invest in India? Would he be interested in providing jobs to Indian people or interested in making more profit? The jobs will come only as a kind of side effect. Whereas a public sector undertaking, it's not a side effect. It's a question of producing wealth in this country and not siphoning off the wealth that is produced here to some other country. Now today, allowing the siphoning of the wealth that is produced in this country is called nationalism. This is the irony. So Ambedkar had very, very clear views about how our entire polity should be, or economics should be constructed. Justice Balakrishna, who came to National Law School some time ago, gave a lecture on this, where he mentioned how during the Constituent Assembly debates, all these socialistic ideas of Ambedkar were completely shut down by a majority of the people. The main argument being that they told Ambedkar, see, Constitution should remain a neutral document. You cannot make it ideologically loaded. But friends, please note that there is nothing like a neutral document. There is nothing like a neutral stand. Even if we think we are in a neutral position, we would have tilted to some ideological position, either knowingly or unknowingly. So today our constitution has become, because of that, so pliable that you can bend it the way you want it. You can bend it to the left, you can bend it to the right. So we have rights, but we have no protection for the rights. For example, we have the right for housing. The housing right is not just building a house, it's even to get a rented house. But do you think if you belong to a particular caste, particular community, you can get a rented house anywhere you want in a city, in a small town? Even if you are ready to pay any rent that the landlord demands, depending on your community and the caste, it is decided whether it will be given to you or not. For example, you can't go to court asking, say, this fellow refuses to give me the rent, though I am ready to pay the money that he demands from me, because the courts cannot intervene. So we have rights without any protection. Ambedkar wanted rights with protection. Therefore, as a kind of compromise, Ambedkar brought all that he had envisaged into the directive principles. So the directive principles give us a wonderful idea of India, but they are not enforceable. Therefore, I think one of our tasks would be to struggle for bringing all the ideas that are there enshrined in the directive principles of the state into the main body of the constitution as Ambedkar wanted it. That will be our challenge. In other words, Ambedkar studies today should help us to understand Indian history, Indian sociology, Indian economics better, and we have to address his writings openly, in the sense that, as I said earlier, we don't have to make any demigods out of anybody. We have to look at them as our contemporary. I think if you look at the kind of subjects that have been enlisted for today's deliberation, that's what I think we are trying to do. We are looking at Ambedkar as our contemporary, and through that we try to understand our democracy. So certainly there are people who have given us noble ideas with which we can rebuild our democracy. So let us pledge ourselves.